have seen the worst, and there is nothing left for me to hate, so I can lay me down, my brothers, on the ground. I bled today until Coyote comes to raise me up and carries me away to go. Leave me, run like you never did. No, believe me, run like you never run before.
Hello everybody, good evening. Welcome to the Scottish Rugby Podcast, brought to you by the Scottish Rugby Blog. I am Cammy Black, and joining me this evening we've got John Anderson. Hello John.
Hi everybody, how are you doing?
We've got a bit of news to get through this evening. Hello to everybody. Hello to everybody joining us in the comments. We've got Ian here. He's joining us from his wee hiatus. He says, the drums went weird when I turned my phone sideways. It was like Mars Volta were covering it. I don't know if Ian realizes he's commenting on that and that whether that was meant to be a private message to us in the in our wee group chat. Who knows? We are live at the moment on YouTube, on Patreon, not on Patreon. We're on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook. So if you are watching live, then get involved in the comments, and we will we'll put the best ones up on the screen and have a wee chat about them. There's a bit of news to get through tonight. We'll be previewing the Edinburgh and Bordeaux quarterfinal as well as some of the usual features that we do. You can find us on Twitter at Scott Rugby Blog and at Cammy Black. We are also got the blog as well, www.scottishrugbyblog.co.uk, where you can find some articles. Someone, and the name escapes me, we've had a new writer on the blog who's done a bit on the need to sort of harden up the mentality of Scottish teams and be able to actually see off matches. It's quite an interesting read, that, so do check it out. We've also got our Patreon, which is patreon.com/Scottish Rugby Podcast, where you can get ad-free versions of this podcast if you listen on audio. But we also put out some exclusive content as well. So this month it was an episode on the Rugby Sevens. John, Ian and I did a podcast last month on the future of professionalism in Scottish rugby, as well as our views on savoury snacks. John and I have got... There's some bits of news that came out this week around a tweet that Rory Lamont put out. And then there's been some other bits around some interviews that Adam Ash has done. And because we don't want to get sued, we're deciding to put that discussion behind the paywall. So there's going to be a wee bit of extra for Patreons. We're doing a little bonus 20 minutes to half an hour tonight after we finished with the live podcast, where we're going to cover some of our thoughts on those subjects. And we figure if it's behind a paywall, then we can't get sued. I think if any solicitors can confirm if that's true, let us know.
Or they at least have to pay for it first before they sue us. So,
well, yeah, that's true. They have to pay, and somehow that'll. I don't know if that gets us discount.
I think
we can knock money off our court costs.
Yeah,
they claim costs. I'll say, well, I'll give you a refund on your Patreon.
We want the Patreon costs back as well once they win the case.
I think that's how it works. Any solicitors following us, please let us know. We've got a couple of thank yous to say. So if you go to our Patreon page and you subscribe, you've got two options. You can enter the Richie Vernon Thunderdome for £3 a month. That'll get you everything that we've just talked about. You can stand pitch side, have a nice beer and a burger, and watch the action. If you, however, decide you want to pay a little bit more, just because you want to support us, you can pay £5 and get inside the Dougie Donnelly Members Lounge. And if you do that, then you get your name read out on the podcast. So a huge thank you to Ian Walsh and Alan Halsall, who have both signed up for £5 membership. So thank you very much to both. And we're very grateful for that. If you visit the blog, if you're not sure about how to sign up for it, you can visit the blog and there's details there. There's a link somewhere. If I'm pointing up, I don't know if it's on Facebook, you point up, there's a link with the post, or down if it's Twitch. I don't know. Moshen says, what can I get for £1.50? I don't know. Nothing really. You get half an episode. I don't know if that's possible.
Maybe part of the release of a Scottish Rugby themed metal album.
You can stand on the you can stand at the gate and peer through for £1.50. That's what you can do. Wish you were seeing the action. So thank you to them. Bit of news then from one of our other Patreon supporters, Ian Wallace. Now, we mentioned this on the podcast over the last couple of weeks. Ian, as many of you will know, is or was the beard of Scottish Rugby. He is still the beard of Scottish Rugby in our hearts. It has to be said, and I think he will forever be the beard of Scottish Rugby. However, he shaved it off to raise money for My Name Is Doddy. Now, Ian was aiming to raise £3,000. He has smashed that, and I believe that the current total, as I understand, reached over £5,000 once he'd taken into gift aid. So a huge thank you to everyone that supported Ian, and absolute congratulations to Ian too for that. So what an effort, John.
Yeah, definitely. It's a cracking effort, and anyone who hasn't seen the pictures of him since he's been freshly shorn, it's to say it knocks 10 years off him is an underestimate. He's looking very, very good. He's
looking well. He said as well in the car, I said to him, it'd been good to see the chin again. And he said, chins. I don't know about that. I think there's there's definition there. I think he's doing himself down.
That's it. Yeah, he's a modest big chap, isn't he? So he'll be
yeah.
He's actually packing like Richie Vernon down there, but he's not letting us know. He's ripped.
Yes. We're going to talk about whether players should be ripped or not later on in My Hands in the Ruck, I think. The other bit of news, I meant to mention this a couple of weeks ago, I think when the news came out, is for domestic rugby in Scotland is definitely going to be regionalised. So the plan is that Nationals 1, 2 and 3 are going to be split geographically. There's two pools of teams who will be split geographically. I don't think there's been an announcement as to what that will be, but it'd be fairly easy to work out, I would think. And the idea is at the end of the season, there's some big playoff between the two pools on Super Saturday, which I think would technically be Murrayfield this year anyway. John, am I right? You keep track of these things as a Glasgow fan. Keep score.
Keep try. Well, I keep scores more like it, isn't it? Yeah. I think it was meant to be Murrayfield this year. So we've said in this before that the regionalisation thing it just makes sense, and it's always made sense. And I think this will be of real benefit actually to the clubs in terms of just the reduction in costs, the ability for players to get about. It's going to make it more appealing to players. So I think it's a good thing.
I think it's good. I mean, I think I would hope that there isn't just a kind of a desire to return to what was in the past, that people give it a fair go and see whether or not it's a possibility for the future. Because like you said, it's cheaper, you're not traveling as far. And also for play, it's more attractive to players if you've got family commitments. Would you rather travel, you play in a national team, national leagues, would you rather travel half an hour up the road, or would you rather drive halfway across Scotland?
Well, that's it. Yeah, that level as well. You've covered the epic Berwick trip to was it Shetland or Orkney? Sorry.
Oh, it was Orkney. Yes.
Yeah, which is about as far as you can go in Scotland. So
I think the ferry company would be pleased if that did not happen again.
I was talking to someone recently about. It was talking to people about trips to Butte. And trips to Mull, and I was speaking to someone from a club that I'm not going to name, but about half of their squad are banned from the ferry to Mull because there was a couple of beers involved, and there might have been an attempt to, like a pirate, scale the mast. And I was talking about this last week. Actually, I don't know what context that comes up, but yeah, just the subject of ferries.
I wonder how did you get so? I mean, what do you forfeit the fixture in future? We say we can't raise a team because none of them can get the ferry.
Because they're all banned from the islands because of the ferry.
Or do you have to sneak them across one ferry at a time so they're not traveling in large groups?
Maybe go down the road of sort of chartering a fishing boat.
Yeah, we're going to need a bigger boat. It's 23 lads.
Yeah, it's like
a front row and replacement front row as well.
Well, that's it. Yeah, I mean that's the big issue for the fishing boats, isn't it?
Do you think they've got wanted posters on the ferries?
They absolutely
have. You seen these men? Do not travel.
Do not approach.
Yeah. If anybody knows, it's been a while since I've been on a ferry up in the north of Scotland. If anybody knows whether they have wanted posters, like they used to have in the pub watch, is it like ferry watch?
I can confirm the ferry to Butte does not have wanted posters.
It's a shame. It feels like they're missing a trick.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would not have been on one of those wanted posters either because I'm a good boy on ferries, but there's a few.
Is that why you grew the beard, John?
I'm rumbled. Shh.
So yeah, we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting. If you apply for a club or you're involved in a club and you've got any strong opinions one way or the other on it, we'd love to hear from you. We'll see how that goes. It'd be a good thing to review maybe at the end of the season. The next bit of news is we're getting some international rugby, John. It's been confirmed. The worst kept rumour in world rugby since I don't know, since the last time there was rumoured to be a new revised tournament.
Fin to Racing.
Yes.
We absolutely cannot confirm this just now, but it's happening.
Yeah. So there's been we are now getting the autumn rugby test. Now, what's it called? Do you know that? Can you remember the name of this?
Not off the top of my head. No, it's
not off the top of your head.
The 8
See, I should have properly written this down because I thought I'll remember it at the night. I'll remember it. It's fine. But it turns out I can't. I think it's just called the Ultimate. It's got a special name because it's like the Championship or something. I'm just waiting for this website to load up that'll tell me. It's called Rugby Autumn International Schedules. No, I can't remember the name of it, and it's not jumping out.
Autumn Nations Cup.
That's it. The Autumn Nations Cup. Well done.
That sounds good.
It's autumn. There's nations, and there's a cup.
Wasn't there the Nations Cup before? And that's like the last thing Scotland won.
Was that not? I don't think that was a rugby thing. Was that not the football thing that they tried to bring back, the Home Nations Cup, and it was everybody but England, and therefore entirely pointless. It was like Scotland playing Northern Ireland and Wales. It was essentially just like,
What was the name of the thing that Scotland won then? We covered it on the pod with Andy Robinson.
Oh, was that
the Nations Cup?
I think that's the Nations Cup. I think you're right. There was Scotland A won that, didn't they?
Yeah. So there we go.
I think it was Scotland
we
A.
are on to win this because we are the reigning champions.
Reigning Nations Cup champions. Although, yeah, we won that by narrowly beating Romania.
With Chris Cussiter at the helm.
Yeah. So there's going to be two pools. In Scotland's pool, we have got Italy, France, and Fiji. And then in the other pool, there is England, Wales, Ireland, and Georgia.
Sorry, Georgia.
Georgia. Nearly forgot you. So Scotland are starting off with a warm-up game against Georgia on Friday the 23rd of October.
Yep.
Then we play Wales in our remaining Six Nations game. So everybody else is going to... A lot of other teams, like England and I'm off the top of my head, I've got Ireland have got 2 games left to play in the Six Nations. So they will presumably play theirs on the day that we're playing the weekend we play our warm-up. Then 31st of October is Scotland-Wales at 2:15. Then the Nations Cup begins. So Scotland are away to Italy on the 14th of November, home to France on the 22nd of November, and then home to Fiji on the 28th of November. Then there is a final game. Now, what happens is essentially At that point, the two pools are then ranked first place first, second place second, third place third, fourth place fourth, and fifth place fifth. So the pool that Scotland aren't in, all the teams in that pool have already been allocated their home fixtures for the final weekend for some certainty. So Georgia are playing at Murrayfield on that weekend as the home team. For once, we really need to hope that we are not the team playing at Murrayfield that weekend. Because that would mean that we'd had a very bad tournament. We've got a good draw here, John. I'm quite excited about it.
Yeah, when you list the teams, it doesn't seem that equal. It's
I don't know how they've done this. I don't know if it's broadcasting rights or whether it's because even from a world. I'm going to check what you carry on. I'm going to check the world rankings.
Yeah, I mean, England, Wales, Ireland all in the same pool seems interesting, but I think it's really good. And actually, there's a post just coming up regarding it's a positive, absolutely, in terms of I don't know, can I pop that up? No, you have to pop it up.
I'll get it. Yeah, hang on, I'll get
you
go.
You pop that one up. Yeah, I mean it's so. Yeah, we've got BMCL. Is that? Are you referencing
Bobby? He said he's given him. He said he's called Bobby at the end.
Has he? Oh, of course he has. Yes, I just hadn't read right to the end. There you go. Bobby's saying, obviously, it has to have a positive effect for the rankings. Yeah, totally agree. These games do count towards ranking points. The draw for the World Cup was meant to be after the autumn internationals, so
it's been postponed. I understand.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm going to check now. I think it is happening after them, but it's been postponed to allow them to happen.
There was rumours they were going to postpone it because the only team in the top 8 who wouldn't be able to play would be Japan, and that obviously wouldn't be terribly fair on them, given that everyone else can kind of improve your ranking. And the convoluted way the rankings work, you don't actually lose rankings, and it's all silly. But I mean, it's a good pool. I think we should. I was only half joking about us kind of being in it to win it with regards to this, because Italy away is always a tough fixture, but if we've got any ambition of being a decent side, we should be winning that game. We've just recently beat France at home, and despite their individuals, we're a better team than Fiji, and especially at home. So we should be topping that group.
Yes, in theory. I mean, it's going to be the Fiji game, I think, is the one to watch because it's the return of Big Vern. Not only that, you've got Richie Gray, not that one, the other one.
The other one coming in. You might have that Richie Gray as well, though.
Well, exactly. Wow, that'd be like Richie a sliding doors moment. Yeah. So that to me is going to be a fascinating fixture because for the first time, I think in a long time for the autumn, Fiji are going to have a decent amount of prep and a decent amount of time together and a good run of games. Plus, they're getting money as well. They're getting match fees for this, which is fantastic. That finally the Pacific teams are getting paid, although they should have been paid in the past. I think the only issue is going to be for Fiji is my understanding is that the top 14 teams in France are suing World Rugby because they're unable to play because of the decision to open the international window up and further. So not only are they going to have to release the French players, they'll be having to release the Fijian players as well. So then they ain't happy about it. And the Georgians as well, because I think a lot of Georgia
a lot of the team play in France as well. Yeah, you can just imagine now the spate of international retirements that might well happen just before this international window. Perhaps not suggesting that French owners allegedly put pressure on their players to retire from international rugby and incentivize it with money. Just repeating what we've heard.
Now, in terms of the world rankings, I think that's probably how they've done it. My guess would be because England and Ireland are top for third and fourth, sorry. Then France are fifth. Wales are sixth and Scotland are eighth. Then you've got Fiji and Georgia 11th and 12th. Right. So actually, I guess you would, if you'd done it in theory, what you should have done is England top of pool, Ireland top of the next pool, France second, Wales second, Scotland third, Fiji third.
Yeah, that would be.
And Italy are 14th. Sorry, so you would have ended up with Italy last. So you've got Scotland have got Well, in fact, yeah, Scotland have got. I think that's probably how they've done it. Actually, they've split. They've essentially allocated the Ireland England thing doesn't make sense, but I think for all the other draws, it's just kind of
Yeah, one about.
sharing the teams out by rankings.
Well, it wouldn't be World Rugby if it completely made sense. So
That's very true. That's very true.
they couldn't do that.
Yeah. The other news then is in terms of broadcast rights. So here we go. Amazon Prime are going to be broadcasting all the games. This has caused a bit of a stir, and we'll come on to that in a minute. Now, the Channel 4 have got rights to some games. My understanding is that Channel 4 had rights to some autumn internationals already, some residual rights for them.
Yes.
So they have negotiated with Amazon to show some free to air.
The 3 Ireland games they've got.
Yeah, which I think they already had. I think that's essentially what's happening.
And one of them's they're getting cast both on Amazon and I think it's Ireland England's getting their on Amazon and Channel 4 at the same time. Wales
are having all their games broadcast on S4C.
As well as Amazon, yes.
As well as Amazon. So a lot of Welsh people are unhappy that they are getting it for free, but only if they're prepared to listen to Welsh commentary. I don't know why they find that upsetting.
Given the amount of years I thoroughly enjoyed BBC Alba's coverage, I do not understand that. And I still don't understand a word of it.
I'll be honest, John, if Amazon are willing to provide a red button to bring back Hugh Dan McLennan and have him commentate, I would probably choose that as an option for at least one half.
Definitely. He's very
just to hear it's very soothing. It's nice. I sometimes just stick BBC Alba on in the background just because it's nice. I love it.
It kind of veers between that kind of nice, soothing, sort of soothing you into a lovely place, and then he sort of bursts into life. Generally, when Nico or someone else does something Nico-esque.
Matawalu. It's wonderful. So we've had our hands in the ruck on this. So I'm doing it now while I remember.
Go for it, yes.
This was when it comes up on the Twitters. Jason Ryder's hands in the ruck. He said the entitlement of the folk complaining about the Prime deal for £8 a month. You'll be able to watch 13 live test match games. The deal will also bring some much needed funding to all the unions that some people feel they have a right to watch all international rugby for free.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. I've seen quite a few people calling that entitlement out, shall we say?
It's. The replies on Facebook to the Scottish Rugby official account were utterly staggering.
Yep.
I mean, to suggest that being asked to pay $7.99 a month, and it's not like it's a commitment. It's not like you sign up for a year's contract, although you can pay £79 up front. And it's not like that's all you get, because you get some extra stuff as well. And I know we talked in the last episode, the Amazon has its issues, and there are ethical issues that come with Amazon, but I think there are with all broadcasters. Even people have issues with the BBC on both sides of the spectrum. So you find me a broadcaster that everybody's happy with, that doesn't feel like they're infringing the morals in some way, and I'll hold a mirror and call you a liar.
Yep,
because,
absolutely.
$7.99. It's not much. I appreciate that some people have limited internet access.
Yep.
Amazon always offers a 30-day free trial anyway. That'd probably cover you for the whole period.
It'll cover you for the full tournament. So if you time your trial correctly, you can. If you are so desperate that you desire to watch it for free, that you're willing to sort yourself out for a free trial, go for it. That's brilliant.
I like the fact that people said this is excluding real fans. And I thought, well, surely real fans are willing to pay $7.99 to watch international rugby.
Yes. The bit that gets me is they talk, people saying they're a real fan because they have, I've already got subscriptions to X, Y, and Z. You're like, and we had this discussion actually. For the World Cup warm-ups, when they were cast on Premier Sports and people were going off their head saying, "Oh no, it's Premier Sports! I want to watch a Scotland game." And you're like, "Well, we've all got a subscription anyway because we've followed the club game." But yeah, hey ho, well, we're fair dues. But the the fact is that if you've got a Sky Sports subscription, you're not supporting Scottish Rugby. If you've got a BT Sports subscription, you're not actually supporting Scottish Rugby. You have a Premier Sports subscription, yeah, okay, right. You could argue, are you really supporting Scottish Rugby? You're probably filling the coffers of Irish Rugby more than anything, but hey ho. But this is a direct, Amazon have said they're putting money into the game, and taking this subscription will directly benefit Scottish Rugby. So if that's not been a real supporter, I think it's time for me to hang up my cape and give up this life of crime, because it's bonkers.
I also think and I think, again, we probably talked about this last week, is the idea that you can sit for an entire afternoon and watch 3 consecutive games, not since Grandstand.
Well,
in
exactly.
the 90s have we been in that position to watch, because rugby's all international rugby is already the door's been opened, it's gone, the horse has bolted. International rugby has gone to pay TV.
Yes.
This is about finding the right way to do that, and being able to sit down and watch 3 consecutive matches back to back on an afternoon to see a game like Italy-France. You could, before it'd be nigh on. I don't think you could actually see that game unless you somehow tapped into Italian TV through a satellite feed by bouncing a signal off the moon. It's not. It wasn't it wasn't these games that didn't involve any of the home nations or Ireland were not accessible before, and they are now. And that's if you're a real fan, then that's good news.
Yeah, if you're wanting to catch up on what's actually going on in the international game, then that's a really good way to do it.
I miss kind of just being able to. I like the idea of being able to kind of just have it on in the background while I'm potting around the house, have the other games on, not the Scotland games, so I sit and watch that, but have the other games on, potting around the house, standing probably for about 40 minutes with a screwdriver in one hand and a cup of tea in the other, staring at the screen, looking like I'm about to go and do something, but I'm not.
Absolutely, that's the way to do it. And exactly. I think it's worth noting as well that after you've finished your Autumn Internationals games, you've finished your marathon session on your Saturday watching 3 games in a row, you can then put the Richie McCaw documentary on. Or you can put Dan Carter on.
Or the All Blacks. Or nothing.
I must say the Barcelona take the ball, pass the ball. Highly recommend that as well.
Yeah.
I was mentioning our chat with when we had Damien, when you interviewed Damien. Regarding that, I was thinking about that when I was watching it, about the culture that they'd created. So very, very interesting.
I mean, there are reasonable things on, and if you've got kids, there's a load of crap on there that they love.
Yes.
I mean, Dinosaur. I can highly recommend Dinosaur Train by Jim Henson. It's 3D. It's dinosaurs that travel by train back in time to see other dinosaurs. I mean, what's not to like? What a great concept!
There you are. I think we're veering into your other podcast just now.
We are. I know. It also has the best theme tune ever. Right? So it's like it's a dinosaur that it's an it's a dinosaur Elvis impersonator that sings it. In the very last episode of season 1, he comes on and he sings the song live to all the dinosaurs. It's magnificent stuff. Paw Patrol's on there. Peppa Pig. Anything you could want. You can get a screwdriver sent to your front door the same day. Do you want me to think of all the extra benefits? I know.
What's not to love?
I know. Hannah's a good TV. Have you watched Hannah?
Yes, that's good as well. Yeah,
both series of Hannah are on there. Treadstone, if you like the Jason Bourne films, that's been cancelled, but the first season of Treadstone's on there. That's lots of good things on Amazon Prime. So you're going to get your money's worth. Now, the interesting thing for me, John, is Amazon the future for international rugby? Because the whole idea that what CVC want to do is package it all up.
Yep.
This is where it makes sense to me when everyone's complaining, I've got my BT, I've got my Sky, I'm having to pay for this again. I think the idea of this what CVC want to do is package all that up and say, here is all the rugby in the world. Here's your Bledisloe Cups, here's your Super Rugby, here's your Pro 14, here's your Prem, here's your European Rugby. and just say, someone like Amazon, you take it all.
Yeah.
And you have a multi-streaming platform, and you can watch any rugby you want for £20, £30, $7.99 a month, whatever it is. That to me is more attractive than having to pay for, because I'm on a Sky subscription. I haven't even got a BT Sports subscription. I have to kind of find ways of watching European rugby. The Pro 14, Premier Sport was a reasonable price. I was happy to pay for that, but I couldn't justify playing on top of that BT Sport because all I would watch is rugby, and there's not enough of it on there for me to justify paying for it. So it makes sense to kind of this will be a good trial to see if that could work.
And I think it's clear that that's their strategy, given that CBC have been obviously investing in, they've got the investment, potentially the investment in the Six Nations, which I don't know, has that been concluded?
I don't think it's gone through. I think my guess would be that CVC are trying to lowball them because of COVID, and the home nations are saying we're not that desperate yet.
Yeah.
Because they all have to vote for it. The RFU will be going to take the money. It's like deal or no deal.
That's it, yeah.
Open the different boxes. England are going, we've still got the 32,000 up there. Take the £5,000. And all the other home nations go, we don't need it. Come on. Keep playing Noel.
We're going to knock a couple more blues out. It's fine. Let's go.
The one piece still, the RFU sat there going, the one piece still out there. Our sevens are having a crowd fund for themselves to get to Tokyo
by going on deal or no deal.
That's essentially what I thought. That's exactly what I imagine the discussions around the Six Nations there at the minute. It's Scottish and Irish unions sat there like just kind of like going, all right, we'll hold out for a bit more, and then the Welsh and English unions kind of screaming, we need money, please.
Well, to be fair, the Welsh Union did insist on bringing like every Welsh superstar that they had gratefully got off their payroll. They decided to bring them all back just in time for COVID. So it's like, that's magnificent, guys. Well done.
Great timing. This was us having this debate the other week in a wee group chat about this argument that Wales. Somebody said, I think it was Simon Thomas on Wales Online, had claimed that if Wales got rid of the 60 cap Gatland rule, whatever they call it, that every Welsh player would leave to the English Premiership, and that most of the Wales squad would be made up of players playing outside of Wales. Now, I'm calling bobbins on that because I think you look at Scotland and our model. Now, aside from the fact I think Wales have probably got too many pro teams to sustain, and they're trying to sustain 4, and they probably could sustain 3. Scotland aren't losing players to the Prem. When they do, they quite they lose the big players like the Johnny Greys, the Stuart Hoggs, quite rightly, the Finn Russells have gone, but they're able to keep everybody else. I think I worked out that is it 30 out of the 38 were Scottish-based players in the last Six Nations squad.
That would be about right.
You're not going to lose the entire Welsh squad to English teams because they don't want them.
No, and again, this is where you have to start to balance out. So one of the things Scottish Rugby have talked a lot about is, yes, right, we know that if you get offered a contract from France or offered a contract from the Premiership, the chances are we're not going to be able to financially match it if it's a big contract, right? But what Scottish Rugby do is they manage the players correctly. They make sure that they get their rest periods. They essentially prolong their career. You can go to the Premiership and get flogged stupid and retire at 32, or you could go on 34, 35 and get a few more years on a slightly lower contract. But, you've got that security of income, and they are making a lot of efforts to make sure the players are looked after as they move out of the pro game as well. Particularly the guys that have had more of a, let's say, a illustrious career. They make sure that there tends to be a place for them in Scottish Rugby if required. So it's about the whole offer, isn't it? And it's not just money.
No, exactly. I think that's it. It's it's not that's what you get. You stay in Scotland, we'll look after you. We're not going to play you every game. You're probably going to have a better chance of prolonging your career than if you go elsewhere. But if you want to go for the experience to play elsewhere, then off you go with a blessing. And I think it would be the same in Wales. I think they would lose some players. I think they probably would lose the biggest players, but it's not about the money for everybody.
No,
it's not.
And
you
look at guys like your John Davis goes, heads off to France for a couple of years, ends up coming back. It's that happens quite a lot. People go away for a couple of years, top up the bank balance. That'll do nicely. I'll go back, be around my family again, and Yeah, I think
Welsh supporters get ideas above the station sometimes.
Well, yes, absolutely. I think that's the prerogative of Welsh fans everywhere to believe that. I think that's the Gatland effect, isn't it? To believe one is world-beating.
Yes. While we're talking about Gatland, actually, Andy Lone has said, I see Warren Gatland started his Lions duty last night at the Quins game. How many games do you think he'll watch of the Scottish games on the 8 Nations and Pro 14? I wonder if he watched Finn at the weekend. It's too early technically, I think it's too early for Lions chat. I think we need to wait till, I think, after the autumn is when we properly get into Lions chat.
I think it depends as well, because obviously, I mean, there's still talk about what's going to happen with the Lions tour, and obviously the legally mandated aspect of what we do is determinant on the dates that are provided. So
yes, so I'm going to say he will watch Scotland games during the autumn tests. He'll watch the one against Wales,
yes,
and he'll watch the one against France. And probably watch the others on the telly.
He might watch the game against Fiji just for a laugh, just because he wants to see the Fiji boys.
He might do, yeah. Whether he's allowed in a stadium is another thing. Because we don't know if anyone's allowed in a stadium at this point. He'd have to be.
Exactly, yeah.
Is Warren Gatland COVID secure?
I'm going to say no. Absolutely not.
He was photographed at that game, and he was not socially distancing from the bloke he was with. Now, if they're part of the same household, fair dues. If they're sharing a flat, fine, but they were sat together at the match, so he'd have to be COVID. He'd have to get past Jason Leach's stringent checks. Well,
exactly. How is this going to be in terms of the rule of six? It's honestly who knows?
Well, we know he's got form with the geography 6, haven't we?
Well, exactly. The rule of 6 is a different thing altogether for him.
We'll move on then. The next bit of news, and we'll probably get into a bit more of this in the podcast extra we're going to do, John. But Adam Ash has been doing the interview rounds to promote his CBD oil business. We'll talk about that in the extra podcast.
Yes.
The interesting thing, I think, though, that came out of that discussion, and now there is a trend, is that Dave Rennie is not a people person.
Dave Rennie is not a people person. The sun is hot, and bears do indeed go in the woods. Yes. Yes. I think there's going to be more and more stories coming out about Mr. Rennie, but Ash was not terribly enthusiastic about his relationship.
He said that he got on with, he liked him as well. He was a nice bloke, but he just kept, he spun him along, and that's now the third or fourth player that said the same story about him.
Yeah, he'll tell you what he wants from you, but I think the quote from Adam Ash was that once you're out of his circle, it's very, very difficult to get back in. And that, I mean, it's professional. It's professional sport, right? And you can understand a guy like Dave Rennie's got a type. He's been hired based on his previous the way he's done things in New Zealand. It just strikes me as surely professional coaches have to have an element of flexibility about them.
Yeah.
But yes.
The other interesting thing I thought Adam Ash said, is because obviously he got called up to the Scotland camp, and he didn't feel like he'd given his best impression to Danny Wilson, which is part of the reason why he felt like he'd been let go, that because of what had gone on at Glasgow, that he was frustrated, and he was maybe transferring some of that frustration into the Scotland camp, that he wasn't being given a fair go, and that he understood why Danny Wilson had maybe not not offered him an extension or had given him the opportunity to go and try elsewhere.
Yeah, it was very honest of him, actually, because he was saying, obviously, he was explaining his mindset and saying that, turning up at Scotland camp to, what was the quote, get your head kicked in by Grant Gilchrist. You can understand the frustrations, and often you don't hear sports people saying that, it had an impact on my performance, it had an impact on my relationship with people, and it just so happens that a guy that was an assistant coach where I was at that point happens to become my manager, and guess what? He's not seen anything he likes previously, or has a bad my reputation is sullied by what has gone before, and therefore, he's made the choice to say you're not part of my plans. And I think it was honest.
Yeah, Mosh Shen.
Who's getting fair involved tonight?
Moshi Shen. He says Alex Dunbar was the same. Do you think he would be a good signing for Edinburgh?
No. Next question.
That's the kind of detailed analysis you come here to the Scottish Rugby podcast for.
This is what you pay your Patreon money for, boys and girls.
Do you think he made a good signing? No.
Would you like me to elaborate somewhat on that?
Yes. I'm not. So you don't have to ask open questions in the comments. We will normally elaborate a little bit more. So, you go ahead, John, and I'll throw my tuppence in.
No, so actually, I was thinking about this the other day because there was a couple of people mentioning it on the Glasgow Warriors forum saying Dunbar's been released, Edinburgh are kind of, still in the market for maybe some firepower on the back. Would Dunbar be a good signing? And they pointed out that he had surgery and then was released from Brive. So he has had surgery again. Alex Dunbar is sadly made of glass and is no longer anywhere near the player that he was when he was at Glasgow. And that's just the brutal truth of it, sadly. His knees are shot. He isn't physically up to, in my opinion, being the standard that an Edinburgh team looking to push forward to reach finals, to reach semi-finals needs. So, and it wouldn't be cheap either. So no.
I think you could bring him in on a temporary contract.
Yep.
If you're looking to fill a gap. I don't think he's a long-term option. You could bring him in a temporary contract. What was interesting, I think, he did an interview with Mark Palmer in the Times this weekend, talking about the fact he'd been let go. And one of the things he said is he'd been in regular contact with Gregor Townsend.
Right. Which
I think spoke to me more about Gregor. It was interesting because that article came out a few days after Adam Ashes.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, that's from a man management point of view, isn't that interesting? You've got a guy like Alex Dunbar who's way down the pecking order from a Scotland point of view. He's saying that, that's in the interview with Mark Palmer, he says, getting back into Scotland's shirt is a pipe dream at this time. I just need to get back playing rugby. I need a contract. I think that's absolutely the right mentality to have. It's very realistic. But what was interesting is that Gregor Townsend had been in touch.
Yeah.
So that's interesting to me about Gregor Townsend's approach, that he is making contact with these players that are maybe on the fringe of the fringes. Do you know what I mean? That but staying in touch and asking how they're getting on.
It might be potentially the difference in having, and it seems slightly backwards that if you've got day-to-day contact with someone, you wouldn't necessarily, you see them all the time, so you don't necessarily take the time to see them, if that makes sense. Whereas, someone like Townsend, he's out, he's got lots of other things to be doing, but he's also got a bit of space to kind of go, do you know who I've not called in a couple of weeks? Let's give Big AD a shout and see how he's doing, see how his dog is, because his dog's lovely.
He's a lovely dog.
He has a lovely dog.
It's interesting. I think you could bring him back short term to Edinburgh. I don't think there'd be interest. It wouldn't be an issue with that. I think he would have to accept that it wasn't coming back on the same money.
Yeah.
Given the current situation, we're all in with coronavirus. I think it might be an option for him.
The other aspect to it is so you bring Alex Dunbar back in as a 12. Let's assume his days as a 13 are kind of behind him, right? So you bring him in as a 12. do Edinburgh need a 12? That's the other question. And does he add anything to that Edinburgh team? I don't know.
I don't think he. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I think from the way that Edinburgh and Glasgow are
trying to
essentially
play,
both Scottish Pro teams are development squad. They're both development squads, really. If we're honest, development squads who have a good tilt at things.
Yeah.
So is he a development player? No. Is he good? Is he a reasonable prospect to back up? Possibly, but is he going to get the games he wants to play in? No. That's the bottom line. He'd have to accept 2-3 games a season if he came back to Edinburgh.
When the other guys are away, and it's a shame. I mean, I totally appreciate it. I'm being rather negative regarding Alex Dunbar here, and I should point out, most people will be like, I absolutely loved Alex Dunbar when he was at Glasgow. I thought he was a fantastic player. I loved his attitude to the game. It's just this is professional sport. It's really, really ruthless. And I was talking to my wife earlier on regarding the other news regarding Castor Semenya and all that sort of stuff, and we were talking about just professional sport and how you talk about professional sport, and we seem to have this view that it should be inclusive, but in reality it's absolutely not, because these guys are playing professionally because they've had the opportunities to do so, and they've been in the right place, and they've got all the talent. I probably don't have any of those things, but if I had, I might have got to play wrestling. It's just,
you can't make and I think unfortunately that's the thing, isn't it? It was interesting you mentioned before the Damien Hughes interview, and it was something he said is in his books. He uses sporting analogies very effectively, and he uses them and he compares them to actual kind of scientific and psychological research to back up the points he makes. But one thing he said in that interview is you can apply everything you can learn from a sporting environment in business to a point.
Yes.
So in the profession, in business, you have to make reasonable adjustments for your employees who need those adjustments because they've got mental health issues or disabilities or other factors that mean that you need to help them put something in place so that they can perform their role to the best of their ability. And that's absolutely the right thing to do. And that's as it should be, because, to try in professional sport, it's different because you don't do that in professional sport. You can't say to somebody, all right, you're struggling a little bit with stress at the minute, so we're going to have a buddy on the pitch with you.
Yeah,
you can't do that. You can't say, you've been injured, we're going to give you, you're injured, you're out. Okay, well, we're going to stick you on the pitch with a height adjustable desk. It doesn't. You can't do it in the same way. And like you said,
tell the opposition to not kick the ball above your shoulder height for you.
Exactly, so you don't have to raise your arm.
Yeah,
and so that's why it's brutal, isn't it? Because you get to a point where you can't play anymore, and allowances can't be made for that. I think allowances probably can be made to a point to cover deficiencies where what you bring to the team outweighs the deficiency. So you're not very good at defense, but you're fantastic at attack.
Yeah,
right. We'll stick somebody in to cover for you. But when it comes to it is brutal. And while at the moment, the point at which you're what you bring to a team and what the team loses by you playing, but the moment the losing side starts to outweigh the positives, then
you're gone.
You're gone.
Yep.
And it wouldn't happen. It wouldn't happen anywhere else other than professional sport.
No, and
it can't happen. But
it shouldn't happen in other environments necessarily. But yes, it is a brutal world. And again, it's one of these things we don't talk enough about it. That we talk about players moving to different countries to go and chase the money, get big contracts, and we always we say the platitudes of it's a short career, and your career could be ended at any point playing rugby and stuff like that. But the reality is, all that stuff is absolutely accurate, and it just takes one coach in one session taking against you, and that could be your career over.
Yeah,
just like that. It's and that's not overly dramatic. That has happened. So
yeah, And it's not like it's, in a business setting, you'd get the union involved, you'd sit around, you'd have mediation, you'd have, you'd
You would
have grievance procedures, but
you would have it all. You would have improvement plans. You would have everything. And yeah, it might not work out. And do you know what? See, if it didn't work out, the opportunity for you to move to a different organisation is probably quite high. Whereas if you're a professional sports person, you are part of an elite group of, there's 70 professional players in Scotland, maybe 80 professional players in Scotland, playing for 2 entities. If that's your pool, that's where you can go. If you have a grievance, that's where you go. It's really difficult.
Yeah. No, and I think we don't, like you said, we don't acknowledge that enough. I think the thing I always say to people is we're a hybrid of essentially we're a fan podcast and we're a fan blog. Yep. That's our background, but we try and approach things from a inverted commas professional angle, that we try and not act like fans when we analyze things and when we criticize. So when we criticize, it comes from a place of saying we can't do what they could do. We appreciate they're putting their bodies on the line and doing all that, but if we were just to sit here and say nice things about them, it would be a very short podcast and we wouldn't have much to write about on the bloody blog. But it comes from a place where we absolutely 100% respect what they do. But it would just become repetitive if we said that at the start. I had a disclaimer at the start of every article and every podcast saying we understand what they're going through, Joe. I think we just
standing order of I reckon Ian could fill the whole blog with George Horn articles, just saying how good Hornito is.
We'll move on. We're going to move on quickly. We've got a couple of bits of more news to pick up on. A couple of Embra bits. I don't want to just take up this talking about non-Embra things, John, just because Sandy's not here. The Embra have had a number of players named in the Pro 14 Team of the Year. So we've got Pierre Schumann, Grant Gilchrist, Bill Matter, Jaco van der Walt, Duhan van der Merwe, and Blair Kinghorn, which is... the other big... I suppose it's made up of, if you look at it, actually, it's made up of Leinster and Embra players, who are the 2 teams that topped
the groups,
Topped the groups, so it's understandable.
Yes.
What's interesting to me is that most of those players, maybe with the exemption of, not Grant Gilchrist, he didn't play a lot. He was kind of flitted in and out of the Scotland team. Certainly, Blair Kinghorn, I think, is a... That says a lot about Blair Kinghorn because he was in the Scotland setup and he was at the World Cup. He has made it in because his game time for Embra will have been limited by that.
Yes.
The rest, though, you look and actually you look across the rest of that best of team, and there's not many internationals in there.
That makes sense. And the after a World Cup, that makes sense because the criteria, I believe, for inclusion in the Pro whatever it is this year Dream Team, I believe is 12 matches. Now it used to be 12 matches, so you had to have played 12 matches to be eligible for the team, which was why Richie Vernon wasn't in it every year.
Over 1 to 15.
Just RV all the way, and 16 to 23. It's interesting because actually, when you look at, I think prior to everything shutting down and everything just being an absolute carnage, right? You would probably have said, right, Pierre Schumann, great shout. The rest of the Edinburgh boys, they were all on form. They were all playing really well. Deserved 6 players in the team, deserved. Fine, happy with that, right? You come back and you look at the first game against Glasgow was just was dreadful. Really, wasn't really a good game of rugby. Nobody really stood out. They then rested 11 players and lost to Glasgow, and then they absolutely canned it against Ulster. And the players who've made that dream team, guys like Schumann, guys like Mata, did not come back well from lockdown. They've not performed since they've come back. And admittedly, that makes sense. It's they've been off for months and you can't necessarily just turn it on straight away. That's fine. Everybody's trying to find their feet. So, you've got to say then that the team was picked based on, as you say, the league form to a certain extent, and then there's maybe been the odd tweak here and there, but I think it's a great thing for Edinburgh. I think it's really good that these players are getting the recognition, and I really, really hope that it doesn't necessarily. I mean, I don't think many people will be paying attention to, their recruitment policy will not be, let's look at the Pro 14 team list, team of the year list, and go, right, I need one of them. I'm having that guy. He won the Pro 14 Best Flanker Award. Yes, he's my guy. But it does it starts to put players onto people's radar, and that's what I was talking about previously. Edinburgh could do without that.
Yeah,
in some ways.
And I think the other thing is that I don't want to say second season syndrome, because this is what Richard Cockle's third or fourth season in charge. It's that element of, like you said, the Bill Matters, the PS Schumans have not come back in the same form. Now, it's strange times, admittedly.
Yep.
Everyone's getting back to fitness. Everyone's getting their head in the right place, and that's going to be difficult to get back into things like contact training when you pretty much training 12 months of the year these days. You get a couple of weeks holiday over the summer, but that's the way it goes. That they haven't come back that strongly, and that kind of brings us on to the Bordeaux quarter-final. It's a massive. It's hard to predict this game, because Bordeaux have only had one game back, because their first game against Stade Francais was cancelled because I think some Stade players got the Rona.
Because of the Rona. Yep, it was. Yeah.
So Bordeaux played one game which they won 32-30, I think, against, I'm going to get the name, I did write this on my notes. It was against, it's 25-20 against Brive.
25-20 against Brive.
Against Brive. So Bordeaux have had one game, Edinburgh have had two games, one of which was, a mess, the other of which was I don't even know how close to a game of rugby you could describe it as. So it's hard to then say, well, what way is this game? It's a hard game preview, because we just don't know what's going to happen. What Edinburgh, when some Edinburgh players have come back and they've hit their ground running, others have not. PS Schumann amongst them.
Yes.
Bordeaux have won one game. They've lost Semi-Ranradra. It's easy for you to say. They've still got Jefferson Poirot. They've still got Matthew Jalabert. They've still got quality players.
Yep.
But Edinburgh have got quality players. But who knows how well everyone's going to play at the weekend? How match fit everyone's going to be?
Well, that's it as well. And the other kind of variable in this is that Edinburgh haven't played away from Murrayfield at all as yet, and you don't know. So it's maybe overstating it for, again, these are professional players and it shouldn't be an issue, but they've been in the bubble of Murrayfield for quite some time, and the policies and procedures and everything that goes on around them in Murrayfield, it's probably second nature now. They've been doing it for long enough. So having three fixtures there on the trot, they've kind of got into the swing of it. They know how it goes. To do that elsewhere now, it just adds another element of, it gives the players something else to worry about. And I don't think in a game, like you say, there's no way you could call, just looking at those two teams, if it was a bookie's odds, there would just be, it would just be 1-1-1-1. Nobody's got a clue what's going on. So you're in that situation where it's going to be, it probably will be so tight that any little advantage that the other team has, it could swing it, and it's just difficult. But my concern is that no matter how Edinburgh fans want to, kind of play it, they haven't played well since they've come back. That would be a worry.
I'm looking at one betting site. I'm not going to say who it is, because we don't like to promote betting sites after the drilling you got that time. And also, we want their sweet betting money if we're going to name them. But
exactly,
for a win, it's Bordeaux Beglers are 1-3 and Edinburgh 13-5.
Yeah, and I think that's reflective of the fact that Bordeaux are at home. They do have some class acts. I think Randrada is a massive loss for them. And if he was still at Bordeaux, you would be looking at it and going, yeah, no, that he's going to tear them apart. But they've Edinburgh have surprised us. They do the surprising quite often, including throwing away leads from dominant positions. So let's see how it goes.
What's interesting though is you mentioned that they've been in the bubble of Murrayfield. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but Glasgow had the home changing room 2 weeks on the trot. Now that I don't know if that's a coronavirus thing, whether it was just look, for the bubbles, we can't be bothered sending the cleaners in to wipe it down in between the weeks.
SRU have got costs to cut, mate. You can't be employing, can't get the cleaners in.
The cleaners on furlough, so
that's it. Yeah, we can't get them in. George Horn's offered to clean the changing rooms, but no,
we can't afford a bottle of
where's Big Brian when you need him? Get him in.
The other thought I had on that as well, actually, is that deliberate? That Richard Cockrell knows they've got this quarterfinal European game coming up and wants to make them uncomfortable. And at that point, they didn't know whether they were going to be playing the quarterfinal for the Pro 14 home or away.
Yeah, home or away. Yep.
So you put the team in an uncomfortable position. Yes, they're playing at home, but they're in the away dressing room, which isn't as nice.
It's not as nice, no. No, I think it's possibly come into the thinking. I think it's more likely it was just that, the guys all arrived at the same time and Glasgow claimed the home dressing room. And, there was
backseat it. Shotgun.
Cold shotgun on it, like when you move house and your kids run in and it's like, this is my bedroom. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. A couple of people calling for Nick Haining to start. Moshchen and Bobby are both calling for Nick Haining to start. I don't think he get much. I didn't see much of him during the 82 games.
No. Again, he does what he does well. He punches large ballet dancer-sized holes in defences, but Matt is a better player, and you would always, in this sort of situation, I think you would always go with the prospect of Bill Mata doing something Bill Mata like far outweighs the possibility that Nick Haining has a worldy Nick Haining game. So you stick with Mata for me. Yeah.
That's a good shout. So we'll see. It's hard to call. I'm not going to call it, to be honest. I'm not going to ask you to call it either, John. We will see. That's Saturday, 12:30. It's on BT Sport. I assume probably BBC Radio Scotland. I'll probably have it on the
radio. I've got it. Yeah. They've got the full game. I'm starting to quite like listening to rugby on the radio.
It's good fun. It always sounds more exciting than actually it is.
Yeah, I listened to the Glasgow Exeter game when Hogg hit the crossbar on the radio, and it was very exciting.
Yeah. We are going to move on, and we're going to do this now. Yes, it is Hands in the Ruck time, the Any Other Business section of the podcast. John, what has had its hands in your ruck this week while I get the other one that we had off Twitter?
I dabbled back into the world of social media. I like my better half Ian have kind of had, I've had a wee bit of a social media hiatus over the last wee while. I dipped my toe back in, and boy, did I regret it. So I stumbled onto a bit of a debate about it. It was after the video of Mr. Finn Russell doing mad, fantastic stuff with his right boot. How good were those tries, by the way? He's just magnificent. And there's a player who's come back from lockdown and just looks just as good, if not better, than he was before. Fantastic. Anyway, the point goes that the usual haters were out in force once again. And it just annoys the life out of me that people say the simple phrase of, I just don't like Finn Russell. I just don't like him. So I appreciate if you think that the way he plays the game is maybe a bit too risky. I appreciate that if
Mm-hmm.
you are looking at him and going, he's all right, okay, so he's maybe had disciplinary issues with the Scotland team, and there's maybe something going on there, and you can have your opinion on that all you want. But if you're trying to tell me that he's not a good rugby player, you are actually an idiot, and I'm sorry, but you are.
I fully agree with that. That's my hands in the ruck as well. I think I saw a response to a tweet where somebody said he had no pace, which is utter bollocks.
Yeah, nonsense.
You watch that intercept try against England. That length that runs the length of the pitch. The infamous nutmeg try against Munster. The pace to get that. Some of the stuff at the weekend, when he hits the angle, that try against Ireland that he set up for Sam Johnson again.
Pace,
intercept try, pace, gas. He doesn't. It's a bit like the thing we've talked with Sean Maitland. Yeah, he doesn't look like he's going 100 miles an hour, but players are struggling to catch him. He's not the fastest back, but he's not the slowest. Certainly not the slowest. He has plenty of pace for a 10.
Yep.
The other comment that I vehemently disagree with is that he doesn't have muscle mass. Now, this all comes from the photograph of him at the weekend where he's had his shirt off, and he's not a toned guy.
No.
Right? He's far from having dad bod, but he's not ripped.
No.
That is not a problem.
No, right? It is not.
Being ripped is a problem because it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in the greatest of shape for an athlete. You might look good. It might impress some ladies. Some ladies might like that. Some gentlemen might like that. Some gentlemen might like how Finn Russell looks. It's fine. Bodies come in all different shapes and sizes. Just because he's not rocking a six-pack does not mean that he's not got muscle mass, does not mean that he's fit.
No.
Just because he's not got bulging pecs does not mean that he doesn't have upper body strength. If you watch Finn Russell play, Finn Russell is, and again, I think it was Matt Taylor was saying this, when he would watch and analyse Scotland's defensive play, yes, Finn Russell missed tackles, but because of the position you're in as a 10, 10s miss more tackles.
Yeah.
You've got Owen Farrell's tackle stats, aside from the ones where he smashes people in the face, but the missed tackle stats. A lot of 10s will miss tackles because of where they are on the defensive line, but the way that they go is that there is cover for them, so it's not a big problem.
Yeah.
Finn Russell hits rucks.
Yes.
Finn Russell makes big tackles. There is no problem at all with Finn Russell's muscle mass. And actually, I think it's getting us into dangerous territory. If we start to have an expectation of how rugby players should look, that's a problem because it starts to say to young players, this is how you should look as a player. Actually, how you should look as a player is how Finn Russell looks.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Absolutely.
There's a professional. He's in good shape. He's playing 80 minutes without breaking sweat.
Yep.
He's doing mad things on the pitch. He's keeping a clear head. That's fine. You can look like Finn Russell and play professional rugby. You don't have to have a six-pack. You don't have to have pecs. You don't have to have defined muscle. Having defined muscle actually means that you're training more as a bodybuilder than for an athlete to play an endurance sport that rugby is.
You look at the guys warming up before the games and stuff like that, and you look at the flexibility of guys like Stuart Hogg. He could go into a crab position and put his legs behind his head. I think he's that flexible, but he's very, 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 very strong and very well built. But he doesn't look like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, and
shockingly enough,
let's not fetishize. The guy. Everyone got really excited when Johnny Sexton was there with his Hulk arms and neck. And I was thinking that's not. That body shape and that build is not conducive to playing a fast running game at 10.
Sexton's game though, isn't it?
I know, and Matt Scott has talked about this, hasn't he? When he bulked up at Gloucester and he lost the edge of his game. It's not we need to say that. Finn Russell looks good.
Yes, and if Finn's watching, we love you, Finn.
We love you. Don't be body shamed by the haters.
Yeah. So you tuck into your baguettes if you want. You tuck into your Haribo. You just keep doing what you're doing.
You do you, Finn. You do you. Yeah. So yeah, no, I think that bothered me a lot because I think there is this idea of what rugby players should look like, and I think it's a dangerous
It's a
way
very,
to go.
very, very big thing in Scotland and it. I think it does come down to there is unrealistic views of what Finn Russell actually is. People have, I don't know what it is. People have it out for him in a lot of ways. Obviously, like we don't. There's lots of really, really, really good fans out there that think Finn Russell is the absolute messiah. But there's just a desire to. It's almost like he's so good that we want to dislike him.
Do you know what it is, John? Because he's not from a public school background.
Oh yes, well yes, I know.
We don't want a stonemason. We don't want a stonemason as our top player, do we?
That's true. Yeah, we can't be having that.
Can't be having kind of men on the tools.
Yeah, I bet if he was still a stonemason, he'd be ripped away.
I don't know. Get in touch if you're a stonemason. How ripped are you?
Yeah, let's. And I'm gonna go full scale on this. Like, don't just claim you're ripped. Right. We need Finn Russell and you. Let's see comparisons. We need
DM John, and then hopefully his wife will find it and say, John, why are all these stonemasons sending you topless photos?
My wife's actually sending me messages just now.
Johnny, when you finish this podcast, we need to have a word. Why am I getting phone? Why are you getting private messages from stonemasons all of a sudden?
Why are stonemasons sending me pictures with a 6-pack of tenants?
The other good thing to say about Finn Russell is him and Gregor Townsend are in a much better place, according to Iltith Davith, who's been on the podcast a couple of times, spoke to Finn this weekend and said that they have said that he's in a good place with Gregor Townsend. So that's encouraging.
Good news, yes.
Good news. The other hands in the ruck we had is from Matthew Riley, who says, hey, the new enforcement of the breakdown rules means it's too easy for an attacking team to force a penalty by pinning in a defender in a ruck. It's impossible to be seen to be trying to roll in the right direction after the tackle. 45 stone of props are lying on you.
Yeah. It's always going to be difficult. It's always going to be difficult, and there has to be a degree of. I think referees always do this with the new interpretations or application of the laws, and there's applying the law, and then there's the degree of empathy that goes with the application of the law, and this is one that, right? It's difficult to see when a player is, because we know players. Right, let's put it out there. Players cheat. Players actively look to gain advantage by cheating. So it's quite difficult sometimes to tell when someone just isn't rolling away or when someone's pinning a player in. And referees need to just make their best judgment on that. And it is difficult. I think there's more obvious stuff that goes on that referees don't pick up on and really should be. Things like, so not releasing the tackler, not releasing and then going in. So I've still got my bee in my bonnet about Hamish Watson in the first 1872. He didn't release. There was 3 occasions. He's the tackler. He is the tackler. He has to make a clear effort to release and then go in and steal the ball.
Let's be happy. Let's be happy though, John, that he has that Richie McClaw cloak of invisibility.
Indeed, yeah. I'm actually just watching the Richie McCaw documentary just now, and it's just at the bit where they're interviewing Alan Rowland about Richie McCaw, and it's like, how did he get away with what he got away with? And he's like, because he always knew where the line was. I'm like, did he though? Did he?
That's the interesting thing. The line's an interesting thing because I think that's what we're seeing at the minute. We've got this adjustment in the breakdown laws. Defense coaches will be all over this at the moment. Give it to the autumn tests and let's see how that's... The first couple of games, we're going to see the same things happening.
Yep.
By the end of it, I think we'll see a very different kind of breakdown because your defense coaches will have adjusted the defense and the how the ruck is dealt with. And so will be a whole new set of problems for World Rugby to sort out with some more variations in 2 years.
Yes. These coaches are paid a lot of money to work this stuff out. So
that's what I like about rugby. That's the fascinating thing about rugby is rugby keeps evolving.
Yep.
It's a constantly ever shift. The sands keep shifting, the rules keep changing, because every time someone finds a loophole or a way around it or a way to exploit it, they close it.
Yep.
And wherever one door closes, another opens, and that to me is what's fascinating.
It's really, really interesting, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So, well,
there we go. That's it for this week's standard podcast. Like I said, we're going to do a wee podcast extra in a minute, me and John, just because we don't want to get sued by anybody or say anything accidentally. I don't think we will get sued. We're not planning on saying anything libelous. I should stress that for legal purposes. We're not saying anything. We're not planning on saying anything libelous, but we kind of feel like there's a couple of things we want to address around the Rory Lamont tweet about anti-vax position that he took.
Yep.
And some other bits and bobs that have been gnawing away, and we've kind of alluded to in the past, that we're just going to try and get into it a little bit for about 20 minutes or so for a podcast extra. But for the moment, we'll be back next week to review Edinburgh versus Bordeaux. But for the moment, it's goodbye from me and goodbye from John.
goodbye.